everybody and welcome to the channel. I am Richard. Today I am not going to bring you somewhere fun. I'm not even going to bring you somewhere pretty or beautiful. I am going to bring you to somewhere quite horrible. It doesn't mean that it's going to get boring because there's quite a lot of things to do in this game and there's a lot of things going on. But I am going to bring you to humankind's worst sights. I'm gonna show you this war of mine. This game is an absolutely beautiful and well-made game. It's one of my personal favorites. I absolutely love it. You do not portray as a soldier in this game. You are not some big hero running around and just getting XP and getting better at what you're doing. You are just a casualty of war, trying to survive each night. You need to get out of your shelter. You need to provide yourself with fruits, with health, with bandages, with whatever you can get to try to survive and make it through the long days and the long nights. This game is from 18 years and above, and there's a good reason for that, because this is a quite heavy emotional game. This is actually a game that I only play solo because I just can't see myself sit down with a group of friends and having a good night gaming, because this is not a good feeling. There's a lot of feelings in this. There's many feelings in them, but mostly it's quite heavy feelings. But it is a great game. And if you're into more thematic gameplay, with really a lot of history, a lot of reading, and a lot of story, this game is for you. So I'm going to go over this game. I'm going to give you an overview of the gameplay. I'm going to go through some of the rules. So let's just have a look at this. This is the setup of the game. The game itself is pretty easy to set up, because on every place where there's supposed to be a deck, it says what deck there's supposed to be. Same thing with the cards on the board itself. Everything says exactly what it's supposed to be on the marked spot. To choose your characters, you should draw from the character deck and take the first red card you find and the first two black ones. Each of those characters should start with a hunger on 2. You should then pick the miniatures corresponding to the characters that you have found and place them on this space of the board. Out here you have all the different kinds of tokens that you will use during your gameplay. You should take the 3 top locations of the location deck and put them on far, distant, and close spaces. All other tokens such as misery, fatigue, wounds, and so on should be placed in an easy reach for all players next to the board. From the Residents and Night Raids deck, you should remove the cards with the red corners. These will be used later in the game. We then create the event deck by shuffle the 3 ending event cards, placing them on the bottom of the event deck, then place chapter number 3 on top of these 3 ending event cards. Randomly draw 4 event cards and place them above chapter number 3. Then place chapter 2 on top of them. Lastly, placing chapter number 1 on the top. There are 2 different sides of this board. This one is the one recommended to start with, as it's a little bit easier. The other one, it gets colder and things gets a little bit worse, a little bit faster. And depending on if you're choosing to do a mission, the setup will also change a bit. I have set up just a basic game here, really just to try to survive, but you can also do missions, and depending on which mission you choose, the setup will be a little bit different. So we have done the setup of this game and we are ready to actually start playing it. The setup might look like a lot, but it's really not. Everything says on the board. There's just a few touches with the event deck and the night raids and residence raids, Otherwise, it really just says itself where it's supposed to be put on the board. Now, I said you have 3 characters from the start of the game, but you can be up to 4 characters at play at once, but then you can't be any more. This game is played out during 6 different phases. The first one is the morning phase. And the first thing we do in the morning phase is that we take one event card from the event deck. On the back of these cards, you will have some text. Up here, there's usually some story background, what have happened, what's going on in your world. And down here, there's some text about what you should do next. This one says that you should take and find the final objective card from the chapter objective piles and put it on the space with the objectives on, down below. Then you need to find and draw 2 more objective cards from this deck. So we take the final objective card and put it on the objective space. Then we take the 2 other randomly selected objective cards and put them on top of the final objective. These should be faced up and can be looked at any time during your gameplay. You would have to finish these before the end of a chapter to get a reward, and if you do not finish them, you will get a penalty. We're done with the morning phase, and we move into the day phase. This is where we get to do some day actions. Each of these pretty little characters here have 3 actions, depending on their state. Because we have these state tokens here that will show what state your characters are in. This character here, for example, have a full amount of actions, 1, 2, 3. They have a full stomach and they are more or less happy. But if they get more hungry, for example, they will lose the thirst action, only having their second and third left. But it can get even worse than this. They could get wounded, for example, and lose their first, second action and only have the third left. But it can still get worse. They can get even more wounded, for example, losing all of their actions. Now this character is still alive, but they really need a medkit, because if anything gets worse, they will end up on this side, sending them out of the game into an epilogue. And as you can see down here, you have a number stating which page in this book of scripts that you need to read. And depending on what number you have on your epilogue, it will give the characters different types of fates. Some of them will just disappear and never come back. Some of them will try to escape somewhere. Some of them will end up dead, and others will commit suicide. There's really no good ending to this. Your characters will start their day at the guard spot, and you can move them horizontally or vertically using the ladders. As you can see here, we have different rooms. All these cards represent rooms, and depending on what it says on them, you need to do different types of actions to open these rooms and be able to go through them. So this character here, for example, can only come to this card here. She can't move on to the next heap as this one is still not searched. Some of these doors requires extra equipment to open them. The closed door here, for example, requires a lockpick. But the rubble up here requires even a shovel or 2 characters. So I would use this first action for this character here to search the heap, and I would take these 2 characters all the way up the ladder to dig through the rubble. As you might remember, as I told you during the setup, we start with a hunger 2, meaning that during our first day phase, we do not have all 3 actions available. We only have 2 actions per character. Once we have placed out our figures on the actions we would like to do, we resolve them simultaneously, meaning that these 2 characters up here have dug up this, and this character here have searched this heap at the same time. Depending on what the card says, you will get different things. This one right here, for example, says that you have simply removed the rubble, and this card is now removed from the game, making this space available to reach the other rooms on top in the future. The heap down here gave us some items. We got 1 electrical part, 1 water, and 3 components. The equipment you find is placed in your storage. You also have another storage up here where everything is times 5. So if you, for example, have 5 of these components, you can just put 1 up here and you will know that this one is worth 5 times. And like I said, some of these doors requires tools to open. This one requires a lockpick, looking like this. You can find lockpicks in heaps, for example, but you can also find them in your nightly scavengers. If you have a lockpick, you could put it on here on the door and 1 character on it, but you would need to roll the black die to see if you're able to open it. We were not, because if you get 1, 2, 3, nothing happens, but if you get 4, 2, 10, you have been able to open the door. Once we have managed to clear up some space here, we can start to use the fitting cards. These ones should be taken here and placed on any empty space in the house. Then you need to place a character on this card to, for example, collect water. Some of these actions will tell you to put a weight token on them, meaning that you can first use this water once we step into the Dawn phase and draw a fate card telling you to resolve the weight tokens. And then we need to roll to see how much water we actually get. Among the different fittings, you will find a bunch of things that will make your characters either more happy, less hungry, warmer, they can sleep better, get less fatitude, they can do some traps, they have a stove to get better food, a metal workshop to get some good equipment, or why not some moonshine? So that was the fittings that you can put in your house to make your life a little bit better. But like I said, we also have ideas. And these ideas are really a way to improve your fittings even more. Maybe you can collect more food, you can make more vegetables, sleep better, or get a better heater. So once you have chosen a fitting and placed it on your board, you have this in your house. And now you can put your miniatures on these cards in the future to make this action. And depending on which card you have placed, you will have a bunch of different actions there. Some of them will require other equipment, other will only require some actions. Some of them, like you saw before, require some dice roll to see how much water you get, for example, or if you ever catch something. Others, like a bed, you simply sleep in to get less fatitude. But this one right here, the workshop, has a bunch of different actions you can choose to. You can choose to make some board ups, you can choose to make filters, there's a bunch of different actions in the same room. But from now on your turn, you can choose to use your actions to do these cards. And like I said in the start, you can only have 1 miniature per card. You can also choose to go outside to find new visitors. But it's not all safe, because you need to roll the black die to see if you get hit by a sniper and suffer 2 wounds. Once that have happened, we can draw and resolve 1 visitor card, the ones looking like this. Depending on which card you get, different things are going to happen. If you are 2-player or less in your group, you get to search the visitor deck and find the first arrival card and then resolve it. They look like this. And depending on what you choose, you might get a new friend in your house, or simply just buy the equipment that they are carrying. Remember, you can never be more than 4 persons in your house. Once you're done with these cards, they're shuffled back into the deck. So we're done with the day actions and feel more or less happy about what we have achieved. We now move into the Dusk Phase. This is where each character needs to drink and eat. And if they don't, well, things are getting worse. Each character needs to get 1 of these. These are water. So I have 1 water, which is enough for 1 character. The other 2, well, they do not get to drink today. And we need to roll the black die to see what happens. If I get 1 to 5, I need to raise the hunger on that character. If I get 6 to 10, I will need to raise that character's misery. Now they also need to eat. And if they get a canned food, for example, I lower that character's hunger by 2. If they eat some raw food, I lower it by 1. If they get some vegetables, the hunger stays the same. But the characters that does not get any food raises their hunger by 1. Once your characters are well fed and have drinking a lot of water, hopefully, we move into the evening phase. This is where we need to figure out what our characters will do during the night phase. If you have built a bed, you can choose to sleep. You simply take your character and you put them in bed, lowering this character's fatigue from the amount that is on to 0. There's also an action in the bed where you can just take a nap during the day phase and lower it by 2. But we're in the dusk phase now, so this character will sleep all night. If you are unlucky and do not have a bed, you can still sleep, but you need to sleep on the floor instead. This will lower your character's fatigue by 2 instead of all the way down to 0. Then you need to place 1 or more characters on guard duty to protect your house. If you have weapons, you can assign weapon to that character. A tip is to use the character with the highest prowess, as this is the amount of rerolls this character can do in a battle. The characters that are on guard duty raises their fatigue by 1. Last thing you can choose is to take your characters out scavenging. If you choose to send out one of your little characters out on a scavenging hunt, we move from the dusk phase into the scavenger phase. If you do not choose to send anybody out on a scavenger hunt, well, then we just skip this phase. But the first thing you need to do during the scavenger phase is to pick one of the 3 locations available. I picked the one in the middle. Now there's a ton of different locations. You have hospitals, you have warehouse, you have all kinds of different places. And depending on which place you choose, you will find different things. At a hospital, you will find more med things, of course. At a warehouse, you will find more mechanical parts, maybe hopefully some food. Next to the locations, you have some numbers, 10, 12, and 14. Depending on which location you have chosen, you get to draw this amount of cards from the exploration pile. So I have chosen the location in the middle, meaning that I get to draw 12 cards from the exploration pile. The exploration cards that you have just drawn should be placed on the unknown spot. Now each player should draw 1 card and resolve it. Once it had been resolved, the turn moves on to the next player to resolve the next card. In these cards you will find a bunch of things, a bunch of places, but also some different people. And every now and then you will be told to move the noise token up a few steps on the noise track. Every now and then you will also be asked to roll for noise. If you roll the same amount or lower as the noise token, you have just managed to skip away. But if you roll higher, well, you will have some kind of consequence. Some of these cards will give you kind of like an effect. This one, for example, Hiding Place, tells you that you can return 2 exploration cards from the deck to place this one down in the exploration slot and use it whenever you need to. For example, this is a hiding place, so if you roll for noise and you do not make it, you can use this card, discard it, to run and hide instead. So this is really your place to put your active abilities, so to say. Every now and then in the exploration deck, you will find a reality impact. These will tell you to pick up one of the color cards. And on their backside, they look like this. They have 5 colors and one of them will have a circle around them. You will also be told to take up a new exploration card from the exploration deck, not the one you have in your hand. On the bottom side of these, you will find numbers, all with colors. The colors that you have just taken is the number that you should read from the book of scripts. So once I have found my color and I have found the corresponding number on the new exploration card, it's time for me to take up the book of scripts and find that number in this book and read up whatever will happen. I had a reality impact, which is usually like an old memory or something like that, but It can also be if you encounter someone, and then this book will tell you what will happen during that encounter. You will get different kind of choices that will lead you to another number, and eventually something is gonna happen, and then it's going to bring you back into the game. Now remember, I got the color red. It's actually said that if you are sensitive, or if you're playing with somebody that are sensitive, you should remove this color from the game, because the red ones are really, really horrible. During your scavenging adventure, you hopefully find a lot of cool stuff. These should all be put in the findings pile. And at the end of your scavenging round, you need to look at your character's card to see how much they can carry. This character here can carry 3 in his inventory. And on each item you can see the weight of that item. Some does not have any weight at all. Sooner or later, while out scavenging, you are going to meet some people. In this case, it's rebels. First we need to roll to see how many rebels we meet. If we get 1 to 3, we get 1, 4 to 8, 2, and 9 to 10, 3. Once we know the amount, we need to draw that same amount of tokens from the bag, not knowing what we get. Let's say I get 2, so I draw 2 tokens. You can see here I got an A, that one has a knife, so I put that on the melee weapon. The other one is a B, so that is a pistol, and he has a firearm. Now, we do have some choices here. We could choose to trade with them for moonshine and cigarettes, if we have that. We could also choose not to trade and roll the black die to see in the journal what happens. Or return 1 exploration card to either talk to them, again looking in the journal to see what happens, or trade with them to see another number in the journal. But let's say that this is a fight, and we would need to fight them. Then we could actually use any weapons that we have found during our exploration. Just remember that if you are using a firearm, you would need to use ammo as well. During the battle, the player needs to roll the weapon dice corresponding to, well, your weapon and the enemy's weapon to see how much damage you inflict. If an enemy inflicts you damage, you can split that damage up between the characters that are out on a scavenger hunt. Sadly, we only have 1 character here, so he will need to take all the damage. When you make damage on an enemy, you simply move their token 1 step to the right. The first is injured, the second is severely injured, and on the third strike, well, they are gone and you do not have to deal with them anymore. Once you have resolved the card, it goes in the discard pile, and the turn goes on to the next player to pick the next exploration card. So while our little friend here is out scavenging, everything is calm and cool at home, right? No. We move into the night raid phase, and things are getting ugly again. We need to draw the top card from the night raid deck, and then we need to see what we encounter. It's usually never pleasant. On here you will see an amount of damage and wounds. The damage will tell you how many things they will steal from you, and the wounds will tell you how many wounds the guard is inflicted. But there are ways to make this less, because like I told you before, you can give your guard weapons. 1 weapon per guard. And you can use this to try to make this maybe not go away, but become less by rolling the corresponding dice. The guard over here has a hatchet, which means that we should roll the yellow melee die. Depending on how many knives we get, we can take away some of the wounds and damage on this card. If we were to roll the hatchet, for example, while wielding the hatchet, we would take away this card completely. Same thing if we give this symbol over here while using a shotgun, the night raid will disappear because we blast them away. But to use weapons, you need to have ammo. If you don't have ammo, you can't use the weapons. And maybe you can only fist fight because you do not even have a hatchet. But everything is better than nothing, right? And once we have hopefully defended our home, we need to shuffle in more of these cards. Remember the ones with the red corner up here in the top that I showed you in the setup that I removed from the game? Well, now it's time to take 2 of these and shuffle it into their decks. You can take 2 of the Night Raids or 2 of the Residents, it doesn't matter, or 1 of each, but you need to shuffle them in your deck, making the situation worse. The Night Phase is finally over, and we move into the Dawn Phase. This is where the scavenger party returns, and they get to bring back the things that they have found. Now we also have a chance to assign some bandages or meds to any characters that might need this. Once we have done that, we need to draw one of the fate cards. On these cards, we will have some steps on what will happen to the characters. We need to ignore the dice down here and only read the text above. And here it can say anything. It can say that we should raise someone's hunger, lower someone's misery, and it's also depending on what we have in store. Some of these characters might get really depressed because we don't have any cigarettes, so their misery will go up. And others will be really disappointed if there's no books to read, and so on. So anything could really happen during these fate cards. Once they have been resolved, we need to draw a narrative cards. These ones are usually a little bit better, because here we get some kind of benefit that we can use during our gameplay. At the end of the Dawn Phase, that's a good place for you to save your game, because you can save it using this save sheet. You simply write down everything that you have on the table right now, and then you just take the game down, and later you can set it up again using this and starting over again. And you will need to do that every now and then because this is a long game and you really can't play it in just one go. This is a big game. Once you have done the Dawn Phase, you go back to the Morning Phase and you start all over again. And that's the way the game goes on until you have completed all the events and finally gotten down to the ending events. What happens when you get there? Well, I can't tell you because I don't know. I have never ever completed this game. So I don't know what happens when you actually complete it. If you even can complete it. Maybe that's the moral story of this game. There's no winners in war. So you can't win that. It's not supposed to end happily because war is miserable. The Book of Scripts is a thick book, as you can see. There's a lot of different destinies in this book. Every now and then it seems like there's a lot of flipping back and forward in this book, but for me, I don't really mind. I think that this book makes the game go to a whole new level. It's almost like a little bit of role-playing, pen and paper old school role-playing, where you come in to someone's destiny, future and past, and you get to see a little glimpse of that person's fate. The journal in this game is quite brilliant because this is the book that will carry you through the whole game. You can actually sit down and start playing right away. You do not need to learn the rules first because this one will take you step by step through the whole game. And every time you end up in a situation where it doesn't say anything in this journal, it will tell you what to do on the cards instead. So you might pick up some card that will tell you to pick up another card that will lead you to the Book of Scripts, for example, which is quite brilliant, which means that you would really not need to have watched this video at all. I could just told you about the journal from the start, but then you wouldn't have watched the video, right? So there you have it, people. That was This War of Mine. This is a beautiful, beautiful, well-made, horrific and horrible game. I love this game and I hate it at the same time because it's just so brutal and it's so hard. This is not an easy game. This is not a game that I would bring up for a game night with my friends to have a good time. This is a game that I sit down and play for myself because there's just so much bad things happening in this game. And that's where the game makers here have really created a world where they throw you in there and make you, well, at least a little bit experience what it's like to be in this situation. And like I said, this is from 18 years and above, and you should really respect that because there's some scenes in this game that are just not for the younger ones. It's a really, really good game, and it's well made. The way you flow through the game from the different situations to the different cards to the different phases is just so beautiful and well made. So if you like really thematic worker placement, exploring, building kind of games, this one is for you. And the pretty thing here is that it's not about you exceeding something big. It's not about you building a grand house or managing a kingdom. It's about you surviving. It's about you just trying to get your characters through another day and another night. And that is a lot harder than it looks like. I highly recommend this game if you like strategic planning, if you like the darker kind of reality games. This one is for you. Just try it out. It's really, really, really good. But like I said, it's not a fun game. It's not a party game. So if you want out for anything light and happy, well, this one is not for you. But if it is, check it out. So that was This War of Mine. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. Please throw in a comment there and tell me what you thought about this video or what you think about the game. Have you managed to actually beat this game? If you have, please tell me about it. I don't want to know what happens. No spoilers, thank you. But I want to know what you thought about the ending. Was the ending worthy of this game? Tell me about that. If you like this channel, please subscribe to it. It gives me a smile on my lips every time I get a new subscriber. And until next time, people, please keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out.